Hi, everybody. My name is David Manashian, and I'm Dave the Real Estate Guy. Today, we're going to talk about closing techniques. This is very important because it ultimately comes down to closing. If you do all this work and don't close, then you got a long road ahead of yourself. So, the ABCs of closing are always be closing. Okay, as funny as that sounds, just remember that. You always have to be closing, whether it's on the phone to get a meeting, whether it's for the listing, whether it's for the purchase agreement. And oftentimes you need to close multiple times within the same phone conversation or meeting. Maybe they'll have some points of resistance initially. You help overcome that, and then you go to the close, and maybe there's some additional stuff. So you need to always be closing and come figure out what is the best way to get to the close. Okay, so in this chapter, I'm going to be offering you 10 ways that you can uh, close on deals. Okay, so the first one is a relationship close. Okay, basically, it's very simple. If a prospect likes you, they will find a reason to hire you. Conversely, if a prospect does not like you, they will find a reason not to hire you. So, building a relationship is a sure way to close and to create a long term client. Now, when I say relationship, it doesn't mean that you have to have years of history. You literally can create a relationship within a few minutes with somebody by talking to them, and they'll know if they like you and or they don't. And oftentimes, like I said, it's amazing. People will work to helping you or working with you if they like you, if they trust you, if they think you're competent. So if they like you, just keeping it simple at the level of liking, they will more likely want to work with you than not. So what does that mean? Being likable, right? We talked about this previously in a chapter, right? Simple likability, right? Smiling, right? Smiling really makes you likable. If you just remember smiling, we'll keep it simple. I like to keep things simple just to remember one thing. Keep smiling, and more people will like you. Okay? Even if you don't say anything. Maybe it's better you don't say anything. Okay? So, so on a relationship close, um, that's basically a personal one. The next one is a confirmation close. You lead the prospect into giving a positive response at all times in the sales process. It involves the use of ending sentences and questions with a positive confirmation like yes, agreed, okay, etc. This is very critical because not only are you trying to lead them where you want them to go, but you also want to make sure that they're agreeing with where you're going. Okay? Now, this next sentence I'm going to read is like gold. If you're going for a listing, you need to ask this sentence. If we agree on price and terms, will you list the property? Yes. Okay, you can do that your own way, but that is if you're going on a listing appointment, before you even start with the talking about price and terms and yada yada yada, you need to ask those questions. Because if they come up with an answer of like, well, I need my husband here, or well, I really need to think about it with my attorney, just stop everything. There's no need to move forward. You need to address that. You need to address that right away. And if they're not ready, then there's no point in giving your hard earned work in doing an evaluation on a property or a listing presentation. Okay, it's up to you if you want to go forward, but then you're really giving away something of value to them where they already told you that they're not ready to move forward. And you're there to get the deal, you're there to get the listing. So a lot of people will just kind of string you along to get what they need and then just leave you hanging. So you want to make sure that that meeting is going to be productive. So if we agree on price and terms, will you list the property? And wait for the answer. You could say yes, yes. And if they say yes, great. Then go ahead and do it. But if they don't say anything positive, you need to find out what's going on because you're wasting a lot of time at that point, and time is your only commodity, right? You're basically exchanging your time into making an income. Okay. The next one is an assumptive close. I love this one. I use this all the time. So lead the prospect who are hesitant into saying yes to you by assuming that they will say yes anyway and begin the commitment process as a natural process of contact. So it's an assumption. A lot of people will flow with you if you're assuming that. They'll go with you. I've done that many times. Here's a line that kind of summarizes the assumptive close. Since we understand that you want to sell the property, here's the listing agreement with the standard terms for you to sign, and here's a pen. I do that. Okay, I put the contract in front of them, hand them a pen. The natural inclination of people is to hold the pen, to take the pen. So once they take that pen, you're much closer to getting the contract signed. Okay? This may look salesmanish to you, but you know, it works. Sometimes you need to help people overcome their resistance to what they really want to do anyway. They're just scared. So you're just kind of helping them to get to the point that they want to be at anyway. I've never had anybody, when I did an assumptive close, go back and say, I don't want to do this. Right? They wanted to do it, but they just needed the nudge. This is a nudge. Okay? So just, okay, so we, okay, great. So we got it. Okay, let's go ahead and sign this agreement. I got the pen here. It's a standard document. All right, there you go. So that is going to really work. The next technique is technique 4. It's called the direct close. This is something we already talked about in one of our scripts and dialogues. Okay, the first one is, it goes something like this. John, I'm calling you about your property on Main Street. I wanted to see if you're interested in selling it. No. No problem, John. I'm really active in Irvine, and while I hear you that you're not interested in doing anything right now, someday you may want to do something, be it an exchange, refinance, find a tenant, whatever it is. When that day comes, I'd like to be there to really help you. I'll come by and just drop off my business card and shake your hand. Okay? So that's direct. Just ask for the business, whether it's yes or no. I've used this actually. When I'm actually looking for properties as an investor, I call property owners directly. I just said, I'm an investor. I'm looking to buy properties and like yours. Are you interested? Yes or no? And I move. It's just, I'm not looking for a listing agreement at that point. I'm just looking to see who's motivated to sell. And I found that to be very effective. Kind of sort out the real people from the fake. So this one is a very effective way of doing business as well. And you'll see, this might be, depending on the circumstances, you'll see which closing technique you want to use. So the alternative close, this is a great way of closing people on an appointment. And I do this all the time as well, right? So when you're talking to them, say, okay, let's meet up. What time works better for you to meet? 10 in the morning or 3 in the afternoon? So you gave them two choices. One is morning or afternoon. Instead of saying morning or afternoon, you tell them a specific time. And sometimes they say, well, 10 is not so great, but what about 11:30? Great. So just go. You got it. Or you got the meeting. When you give them a choice, I wouldn't give too many choices. I would not give more than 3. So people get overwhelmed with more than 3. 2 works fine. Giving choices as an alternative close works well in terms of giving people, because then they feel like they're in control. Number 6 is the takeaway close. The takeaway works is because we all want what we can't have. Offer the prospect something and then take it away. So I've used this, and I can't say I kind of did it intentionally. Sometimes I just get to a point where I'm getting tired of talking to somebody, so I just pull back and I say, okay, we're not doing this anymore. And then I find out that the prospect is actually wants to do it even more, because they realize that, hey, they're about to blow the opportunity, so they're gonna want to do this. Where it's like, I'm very active in the market. I have lots of contacts I talk to. I have a lot of listings I get. I think we should meet because we should do business. Well, I'm not really interested. So, okay, that's fine. You know what? We don't need to meet because I have these listings. I'll take these listings or opportunities to other investors that have taken the time to meet with me, and I'll present them to them before I talk to you. So then they kind of get into a panic mode where they realize that they may be blowing it, where they're not going to have a deal presented to them. You're not top of their list. So then they'll make a point about meeting with you. So and you know what, Pete? I'm very straight and very honest about things. I don't mean it maliciously. I'm just stating exactly what I'm thinking and what I'm going to do. And people respond. So here's the script I wrote. I understand you need time to think about writing an offer to buy this property. I'm going to offer it to my other clients that were looking for this deal just like this. So, everybody wants a deal. If they feel like they missed the deal, they'll feel terrible for days, if not weeks. They'll just, and they'll remember it for years. So they don't want that. You know, they don't want that feeling. So they want to have actually the opportunity to see the deal. So I think it's a good way of getting somebody to come and meet to close. The next closing technique is the next step close. Okay. Simply say the next step is and move on with the closing process. Okay. It's sort of similar to the assumptive close, right? But you're using the words the next step. Okay, great. So we're I understand we're going real good. Let's do it. The next step for us to do this is to meet to discuss what your property's worth. The next step is listing your property so we can get that property sold. The next step is boom. So that's a good transition to getting people to close on the next step, obviously, to where you want them to be. So it's a very powerful closing technique. It doesn't sound like much, but it works. That's why, in quotes, is the close. Okay? That's technique number 8. So when a prospect states they're having any kind of situation or problem, just say, that's why we should meet. That's why we should do this. Right? So here's an example. I'm tired of my management company. That's why we should meet to discuss getting you out of that headache property. So these are kind of nice transitional statements. The next step, that's why, etc., that help you get to the close, that help you close. So these are all closing techniques. The number 9 closing technique is visual close. Now, this is something where you're sitting down with a pad of paper and a pen, okay, and it says prospects may have a hard time making a decision. For these people, a visual close where you draw a T-shaped vertical line down the middle of a sheet of paper and on the left write for what you're proposing and on the right write against, right? So you got a piece of paper, line down the middle, left side write for, on the right side against, and for the 4 things, list all the 4 items for, like your pro items, discussing it as you do. Say, you're tired of management. That's a good reason to sell. You're going to get some vacation time. That's a good reason to sell. You're going to have a lot of money to do whatever it is you wanted to do, right? So, and then after you go through that list, I wouldn't make it too long. I mean, get to the meat of it, instead of dragging it out. But get to the main points, and then say, okay, and for the against here, I'm going to give you the pen, and let them write it down. The odds of them writing it down are next to none. They just won't. And it's just they won't. It's not the way most people operate. So you're asking them to do something that's resistant to them, but it'll make the point that's very clear to them. For somebody who needs to see visually the points that you're making and how they have no real reason to resist and why they should be closing on what you're proposing. So it's a very powerful tool. It takes time. and it takes a certain situation. So it's a good tool to have, and maybe in a situation where you're running into a lot of resistance, this might be something that kind of seals the deal for you to be able to move forward. Number 10, by the way close. I love this one. This is like the movie Columbo or TV show Columbo. I did this before Columbo. I even knew about him. But it's such a great way to close. Okay? To close people on what you want to close them on towards the end of a conversation. Start by saying, by the way, or just one more thing. So you got a low tension, low pressure conversation. It's all casual, it's all fun, it's good. And this whole conversation really didn't matter. Really what you're waiting for is this moment, which is, by the way, did you ever think of selling your property? Or just one more thing. Did you talk to so and so about this this listing or whatever it is you want to do? Here's an example. It was so nice talking to you. By the way, did you ever consider selling your property? You know you're going to come in there saying that, right? But they didn't because it's so natural. And you're about to wrap up the conversation, but when you depending on the conversation or what the answer is, that conversation is not wrapped up. It's just starting. So that's the by the way close. It's a real good close. I love it. Really, that's really the reason of the meeting is this number 10, the by the way close. Right when you're ready to go, that's the question you wanted to ask right at the beginning, but you couldn't because the social circumstances or resistance or whatever else there is. So once their guard is down and they feel the conversation is kind of winding down, right, and you're about to go, just say, by the way, or just one more thing. Bam. So the resistance is down. You ask them this question. Now you got a shot. So this is a great one to use to close. All right, guys, we're on to chapter 25. I'll talk to you later. Take care.